Hello and welcome to Fox Sports Lab AFL Monday Wrap with the Chief. Massive weekend, Chief. Your Pies and Port and then Daylight we're going to touch on first. So the premiership odds have Collingwood $3 and Port at $4.50. So Brisbane are $6 and then Melbourne are a decent price as well. But do you think it's a one-horse race now, would you say, with Collingwood? Or you still got Port that $4.50 is the value?
Still going to have Port in the equation. I still think those two clearly stand out. They both got tested on the weekend. The Bulldogs played really well against the Pies, but the Pies good enough to find a way. And then Port were probably a little bit surprised by Gold Coast, but boy, when they let rip, didn't they let rip with a 9-goal to 1 quarter? So I think those two are clearly the standout teams. Brisbane keep motoring along, but basically they're a Gabba team until they prove they can do it away from home. It's going to be hard to sort of go down that path. And the D's, I find them a difficult team to get a handle on, a really difficult team. But for me, it's still Collingwood, Port, and the rest are trying to play catch up.
So you're saying Brisbane outside the jungle, have no idea what they're doing. But let's talk about Essendon and Brad Scott. So he's got them sitting in 5th position. I said last night to you, here comes finals. You said, yeah, but they've got to win one. But they're still conceding 100 points against. So teams are still scoring against them. Do they play a brand that's going to win them a final?
Well, that's the interesting one. But, it was irrepressive the way they played. They looked fantastic when they dominate the centre clearances. Their ability to move the ball on the outside and find targets inside 50s, first class. I guess it's the old theory, if you kick a big score, it doesn't really matter what the other team's doing if they're kicking. 97 points to concede is a lot, but they never looked in doubt in the game. The margin of 3 goals at the end of the match was probably as close as Adelaide ever looked like getting. So I think they'd be pretty happy the way they're travelling, the Bombers.
And then we've got the Saints. So got off to a flyer in the season. We're seeing them just labouring a little bit now, and the loss of Max King for the season. Yet they have the Suns, the Hawks, and North in their next 3 games. So are they the low-hanging fruit if they make the finals?
Well, that's the one. I mean, King's going to be a massive loss, so he's done for the year. Seb Ross has got hamstring issues. They've got 1 or 2 other niggles there as well. But as you say, a really kind draw. So you've got to say they're going to win enough games to get into the finals. There's no problems there. They're probably a team that you'd like to face in the finals. They're not going to be at full strength, certainly without Max King up forward. But you just never know. With a wily coach like Ross Lyon, he'll have a few tricks up his sleeve.
Well, what about the Suns? So you touched on off the top, Port Adelaide, second half dominance. I'll quote you 2 weeks ago, you get sucked in with the Suns. You come in and then they spit you back out again. They spat you back out again on the weekend. So are we looking at a possible, like they're sitting in 13th now and they're 2 games out of the 8. They had a tactical sub on the weekend, which was really surprising, Ben King. So give us your thoughts on that, because it happened pretty early in the game.
They played 3 really good quarters. Unfortunately, 1 quarter cost them and they were completely blown out of the water by a classier team. I really liked the way Stuart Dew handled Ben King. He was having a terrible night. He started poorly, dropped an easy mark. Missed a tackle he should have made after dropping that mark. Then he dropped another one after that. So Dewey took him off, pulled him aside, had a bit of a chat. It was almost, mate, we need you to lift. Come on. You're really important to us. Went back on. Nothing happened. He had the 1 possession, mate, for the game. So in the end, Dewey had no option but to sub him out. So I like the way Stuart Dew actually handled him. The challenge for Ben King is to have a bigger impact for the Gold Coast Suns. So he's such an important player to them as well. But once again, you're right. They showed many great signs, but they just keep falling short, the Suns.
What did you think of his body language when he came off and was subbed out of the game?
Well, he was obviously distraught on the bench. He looked upset. He looked disappointed with himself. That's the way you'd expect him to be. I'm not sure what we expect of people. If you've been subbed off after having a poor night, you're not going to be singing and dancing or doing anything on the bench, are you? So he looked pretty miserable and probably entitled to be.
Chief, extraordinary to think in your second year, you're a $1.90 favourite for the Brownlow with Nick Daicos, and Fly over the last few weeks has just put him straight in the midfield now. So it's go time in terms of the way they're going to play him. Is it extraordinary? Second year, $1.90 and Daylight?
100%. This guy's a freak. I don't think we've seen a second-year player do it before. And he looks like he's going to make the Brownlow a one-act affair, Digo. Honestly, he could win this by a serious margin.
What about in terms of down the bottom of the ladder? But we've got the Kangaroos with Rats, and we've got Hawthorn putting up pretty good fight against GWS. But, Kangaroos lost centre clearances 20-4 so against Geelong. So are you looking at these teams down the bottom, that the improvements there, or do you think they're dropping away?
Wasn't a great performance by North, unfortunately. I mean, it's never easy when you go down the category, is it? So life's pretty tough there. They had a couple of injuries, but, they've got some good young midfielders coming in. They just need to be better. So they've got to start finding a way to improve, or they're going to get left behind. If you're not getting some good young players now, we know that, the new team in Tasmania is coming in 5 years' time. Life's going to get tougher. So you've got to get your act going right now, or you're going to have all sorts of trouble trying to put a decent list together.
We put the jigsaw puzzle together every week, but the Blues and Tigers, still finals hopes.
Your Blues, my goodness, the moment you hopped off them, they got on a roll, Dicko.
Well, I'm the cooler. Anything I jump on, I just stop. I could stop a train. But Carlton, though, Fremantle, let's talk about that game, because they absolutely were. It was a training drill, the way they were walking through Fremantle. So disappointing from Fremantle's perspective, wasn't it?
Yeah, Freo completely done. You can't have a performance like that at home and think that you've got anything to say come September. Carlton are winning the games that they should be winning at the moment, Dicko. That's the thing. Whilst they're back in the mix, going by the numbers, they're beating teams below them, beating teams around them. So whilst they're getting on a little bit of a roll, I don't think they're going to threaten for the finals. They're showing some good signs, but they're not doing it against the good teams. That's the challenge for them. So I think they come up against Port. That's going to be a great look for them at how they're travelling.
Chief, we're going to finish on the reigning premiers in 8th spot now. Good win at GMHBA Stadium. Are they the dark horse now to get their run going, so to speak, because they're pretty healthy in premiership markets?
Well, if I'm making the bottom half of the 8 come September, Dicko, Geelong's the team I don't want to play. We know what they're like on the big stage. We know the experience they've got, how they play in finals. They'll get Jeremy Cameron back. He'll get some games under his belt. They'll get a little bit of momentum. Still got a couple of games to come down at GMHBA. Yeah, they're the ones that I think can cause a few issues for some teams.
All right, there's our Monday wrap. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday for over and unders, which I'm one up on from last week. So thanks for your time, Chief.
One up.
Yep, I'll talk to you Thursday. I'll tell you Thursday. Thanks for joining us, mate.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.